So you're coming from the perspective of, I want to sell you something. So you're trying to figure out how to sell. The thing is, there's a fundamental difference between what you're selling and what your customer is buying. 98% of the companies in the world don't know that. So their communications is all focused on what they're selling. What a blueprint process does is it completely reorients your company around what the customer is buying.
You're on a mission, and you just need more people to know about it. And whether you're brand new to marketing or a seasoned pro, we are all looking for answers to make marketing decisions with purpose. I'm Monica Pitts, a techie, crafty business owner, mom, and aerial dancer who solves communication challenges through technology. This podcast is all about digging in and going digital. I'll share my marketing know-how and business experience from almost 20 years of misadventures. I'll be your backup dancer, so you can stop doubting and get moving towards marketing with purpose. This episode is sponsored by MayeCreate Design. Yeah. That's right. We sponsor ourselves. And brought to you with love by our Marketing on a Shoestring mini course. Now, our free beginners mini course is all about marketing on a budget. And contrary to popular opinion, you don't have to spend $1 million or do something that you hate to market your business. Get ready to challenge traditional marketing assumptions, because this 101 mini course is designed to give you a rock solid foundation so you can make the right decisions for you with total confidence. You can check it out at MayeCreate.com. That's YOUMAYECREATE.com. And the link, of course, will be in the show notes. Okay, now back to business. Hello again, and welcome back to Marketing with Purpose. My name is Monica Pitts, and I get to be your host today. And with me today, I have guest Ian Chamandy, owner of Blueprint Business Architecture. And for 20 years, Ian has been helping companies define their purpose using his 3-step blueprint printing process that starts with defining the one thing that makes their organization uniquely remarkable in, get this, 7 words or less. And I watched a video about it the other day. And after watching the video, I was like, I really want one of those. Like, I want it. Okay. Because it just seemed so comprehensive and so simple. And once that purpose is defined, it's used to design how it will be managed and how the company will communicate. And I'm really excited to learn about the process today. My company, MayeCreate, has actually been working through a very similar process this year to understand our why. We've probably all heard of that, like Simon Sinek why thing. And it's been really incredible to learn about why we do what we do. And it's also been really insightful and helped us learn about each other as a team. Our senior team is kind of always known in our gut why we do what we do and what our purpose is as a business. And as we bring on new team members, it's not always as easy to get them kind of on the same page and really understanding and seeing it. They just see the processes. They don't always have that same feel-good feeling behind it all. So we're excited to have a documented why. And now we're going to ask Ian 10,000 questions about his journey and probably want to go back and revise it all once we're done. So Ian, why don't you go ahead and start us off by defining some vocabulary. Explain to us, how do you define purpose? Because I think some people consider it a mission or a vision, or like, are they the same thing? Tell me about this.
Sure. And thank you very much for having me, Monica. I love talking about this stuff, and I'm excited to talk to you about it. So it was actually Pablo Picasso who was my inspiration for the definition of purpose. He said, the meaning of life is to find your gift. Your purpose is to share it with the world. So if you just rephrase that a little bit, your purpose is to find your gift and share it with the world. So what's your gift as a person? Your gift is that one thing, as you said at the beginning of the show. There's one thing at your core, at your essence, that makes you uniquely remarkable. And that is your purpose. That's your gift. So, if you follow Picasso's advice, find your purpose, find what makes you uniquely remarkable, and share that with the world. And everybody has something that makes them special, right? What purpose is, if you accept that the definition of purpose is what makes you uniquely remarkable, its components are your beliefs, the things you want, and your talents. Whether, it's a talent that you were born with, beautiful singing voice, or a talent that you develop over time. But those are the components of purpose: your beliefs, your wants, and your talents. And so when you define your purpose, when you define that one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable, and you let that guide your life, then what you're doing is you're making sure that all the decisions that you make are aligned, totally aligned with your beliefs, wants, and talents. And so to me, that's, the beauty of purpose.
I love that. And I feel like at MayeCreate, one of the things that we always have said is that if everybody just gave a little bit of what they were good at into the world would be an even better place. And so, as we go about our day-to-day and annual functions at MayeCreate, we always make sure that we're giving back our talents to nonprofits and other organizations that are also giving their talents back to the community. And we're like, while we may not be contributing $100,000 check, we are contributing what we're really good at, and in that way they can actually earn more with our talents than if we were to just give them money. And so I love that thought. So tell me, as a business or as an organization, because we do have a lot of nonprofit listeners, why do we need to know our purpose? What happens if we don't know it?
Okay, so I just want to start out by saying I don't make the distinction between a business and a not-for-profit or charity, because they're all in the business of sales. And donations is just a pretty name for sales. Mm-hmm. When you are, if you're like the Heart and Stroke Foundation or something like that, and you're out soliciting donations, you're selling. And you're hoping that people will buy. So it makes no difference to me whether you're a charity or you're a business or a not-for-profit. So I just have this belief that as a business, your single most important strategic asset is knowing what makes you uniquely remarkable as a business, that one thing. And the reason that I believe that is because then you're grounded in what makes you uniquely remarkable, and you can use that to guide everything you do and say as a business, right? So there's basically two buckets of stuff that you do as a business. There's all of your day-to-day machinations in order to make the business go, and then there's what you say to the outside world in order to sell, or what you say to your employees or what you say to your board. But there's your communications, and there's your operations. And when you know what it is that makes you uniquely remarkable, that can constantly guide those two things, right? Everything that you do and say is predicated on what makes you uniquely remarkable. And when that's the case, that's what makes you a uniquely remarkable company. So if you don't know what it is that makes you uniquely remarkable, the alternative is really throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. Now, it's not quite that arbitrary, because the people who are throwing the spaghetti against the wall have lots of experience and lots of intelligence, and they can, out of that 100 strands of spaghetti that they're throwing against the wall, they can recognize the 10 or 15 that are really, possibilities. But it's still spaghetti sticking to the wall, seeing what sticks. It's an educated guess. When you know what makes you uniquely remarkable, and you use that to guide every decision you make and every action you take, then you're acting with clarity and intentionality, and that gives you confidence. And so I believe that the single most important strategic asset is knowing the one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable. And then our standard for defining it is that you have to do it in 7 words or less. And by the way, it's usually 2 or 3 or 4 words. I'll give you an example, see, and so you can see. But the reason for that is, if you can describe, the old expression, who's the author of Tom Sawyer?
Mark Twain.
Thank you very much. Mark
the only
Twain.
reason I know that is because Mark Twain's from Missouri.
Right.
Yeah.
So, he said, I wrote a long letter because I didn't take the time to write a short letter. And in the blueprint process with a company, we take the time to write a short letter. So if you're allowed 3 paragraphs or 3 pages to define what makes you uniquely remarkable, you're going to throw in everything but the kitchen sink, or maybe you'll include that. When your real estate is 7 words or less, there's a rigor to the process that you go through where you have to hone and hone and hone. And I'll tell you, at some point in my process, a phrase pops out and you go, oh my God, that's it. Right? You just know. It just becomes self-evident that this is who you are and this is what you have to be going forward. So part of the reason why it's such an impactful statement is you take the rigor. If you know the Toronto International Film Festival, TIFF, we did the process with them, and they said, oh, we've been through strategic processes before, but you took us about 6 layers deeper. And that's because you have to answer it in 7 words or less. And when you take it 6 layers deeper, it becomes much more sustainable. It has much more integrity. It's true to you. And, it's long-term. And then the other reason why it's 7 words or less is I call it the 3 easies, right? It's easy to understand, so you take it in. It's easy to remember, so it stays there. And then it's easy for you to repeat, so you become an evangelist, right? If you tell me what your company's purpose is in 7 words or less, I go, oh, well, that makes sense. Now I can go to someone else and I can say, let me tell you about Monica's company. And I tell it, with accuracy and enthusiasm. I evangelize it because it's so easy to understand and it's so self-evident and so powerful.
Okay, I already want to go back and revisit my why and my purpose. I already do. I'm already sold. I love short and simple. And it is actually, it's so tricky though. Like, I was just designing an ad yesterday and I had a very concise amount of real estate for the ad, and I had so many things that I was supposed to fit on it. Luckily, I had the artistic flexibility to be able to keep deleting things, which I did until I got down to where I was like, someone might actually read this, right? But we want to put all the stuff on that because we think it's all important. But I understand as an art director and as a graphic designer that it's not going to resonate with my audience. It's not going to resonate with the people that read it. And so I have to get just the most important things there. But you have like this emotional attachment to all the other crap. We're like hoarders of information on our marketing. And it just makes it hard to find anything in it because we've hoarded all this crap into it. So I love the 7-word strategy. I love it. And I know, go ahead.
I was just going to say, your conundrum is that when you're coming from the perspective of what you're selling, right? You were making an ad, you wanted to sell something. So you're coming from the perspective of, I want to sell you something. So you're trying to figure out how to sell.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, there's a fundamental difference between what you're selling and what your customer is buying. Yeah. 98% of the companies in the world don't know that. So their communications is all focused on what they're selling. What a blueprint process does is it completely reorients your company around what the customer is buying. That's much more focused. So let me give you an example. And when you were talking there, you talked about things like emotion and inspiration and that sort of thing. And a purpose statement only works when it resonates on a deep emotional level. So let me give you an example. This company came to us. It's a retail shelving company. right? Home Depot builds a box. They go in and they put up all the rack shelving. And when they're done, the store opens. So I was having breakfast with the CEO. This is when we first met. And he was explaining his situation. He said, I know there's a magic to my company. But every time I open my mouth to talk about it, it sounds so generic, so banal, so like anything anybody else can say. And I said, John, it's because you don't know what business you're really in. And he said, you're right. To his credit, he said, you're right. I don't know what business I'm really in. Now, John knew that he was in the category of retail shelving. What he didn't know is what space he owned inside that category, right? So he decided to do a blueprint. Now, just as an aside, the process for a blueprint is there is up to 4 key decision makers on the draft team. So this is just the draft team. And the CEO has to be one of them because it's the CEO's project, right? So we have 10 sessions, 2 hours each on Zoom with this draft team. And that's how we come up with the blueprint. So as we're having the conversation, right? They're talking about, where the conversation with them gets interesting is when they start talking about how they have been in business for 3 generations, right? Not 3 decades, 3 generations. And because of that longevity, they had developed techniques and systems and processes and procedures that allowed them to get finished significantly faster. And so you can imagine if they get a Home Depot done a month faster than their competitors, the store opens a month sooner and they get a month of retail sales that they didn't anticipate. And that's like $2 million a week for a Home Depot. So that's real money in my world. And as we're having this conversation about getting finished faster, one of his VPs says as a joke, he says, in our signs where it says opening soon, I want ours to say opening sooner. I just went, oh my God, that is brilliant. That is brilliant. That became their purpose statement. That became the articulation of what made this company uniquely remarkable. Because unbeknownst to it, it had channeled all of its resources and expertise into getting finished faster. And it did this because that purpose was always in there driving their behavior. They just didn't know it. Once you reveal it, then you can use it by design rather than, it showing up whenever it feels like. So the reason that opening sooner became so powerful for them as their purpose statement, as the definition of what makes them uniquely remarkable, it all has to do with the emotional context of the buyer. And this is a really important point. The emotional context of the buyer is a really important point to understanding what the buyer is buying versus what you're selling, right? So the VP of construction has two things that he or she cares about. One is staying on budget, one is staying on time. Staying on budget, they're accountable to the CEO and the CFO. Staying on time, they're accountable to the CEO, the CFO, and the COO, and the new store manager, and all the construction teams, and all these people who have project management timelines going into that opening day. You've got to delay that. Now you've got hundreds or thousands of people ticked off at you rather than just the CEO and the CFO. So it's arguable that staying on time causes even more gray hair than staying on budget. So when you walk in to that VP of construction and your story opens with, we're all about opening sooner, the CEO, the VP of construction says, you can just imagine their exhale of relief. It's like, oh my God, you understand me. You understand my job. You understand my anxieties. Tell me more, right? You've got them leaning in now. When you get to the tell me more stage, that's when you talk about what you're selling. because what they're buying is just one thing: opening sooner. But once you've sort of established that as the context, they wear opening sooner like a listening filter on their ears. So when they say, tell me more about this opening sooner thing and how you do that. And you say, well, we have a special hiring process that gets us only the best people. And you're sitting there and you say, listening
so
to it
we
through
can
script,
open
and you
sooner.
say, I get how that contributes to opening sooner. Yeah, and we've over the past decades, we developed a training process that allows us to get, I get how that contributes to opening sooner. And we've got our own project management process that's much more streamlined. Oh, I get how that contributes to opening sooner. So you can see that in the absence of your purpose leading the way, your sales process, what you're selling is a laundry list of features and benefits. And they have power, sure, because look at how many businesses, 98% of the businesses in the world are selling on the basis of features and benefits, and they're doing okay. But the companies who are doing really well, Apple Computer, who gets you to gleefully pay twice as much for a computer as you would from oh gosh, I can't remember the guy's name, Adele. That's a company that understands the power of its purpose, right? So when you start rhyming off those banal features and benefits because they're being listened to through a listening filter of opening sooner, it elevates their power and their substance and their credibility. They come to mean something now. And so in the first instance, by leading with opening sooner, John is leading with what the customer is buying and hooking them. And they're hooking them because that purpose resonates on a deep emotional level because of the gray hair thing, right? Yeah, you're getting rid of my anxiety.
Well, and it sounds like it's a lot like the concept of the why that
exactly
we were studying with Simon Sinek, but it's simpler.
So it's the same.
But his was longer. Yours is 7 words or less.
Yeah.
So it's like the same thing, but like it more concise, which I think is pretty powerful because of the same things that we just said earlier, like having to go through all and filter through it all. Where instead, when you lead with your purpose, or you like a simplified why, you are wearing that purpose like those. How did you say it? You said that the listener is wearing their purpose like a filter. I love that. And it is super complicated though, because even just thinking about websites, right? So we build websites a very specific way because we understand all the problems that are going to happen if they're not built the right way, right? But our clients don't think about any of that. They don't. They're like, is it pretty? I'm like, anybody can make it pretty. We make it work. It's like the difference. And so, but I went back to my designers just like a month or two ago, and I was like, friends, you guys are incredible. My developers too. I'm like, but our development process is not sexy to these people. They want to buy something else. They're buying something else. And so we have to like talk about it a little differently sometimes with them, because what they care about is, does it show up online? Did it get done on time? Is it easy to use? But does it show up when people try to find me? That's like it. Like really, right? And so anyway, it's just hard to like get that all out.
It is
hard to get that
Here's
out.
Here's the thing. Every company has something that makes it uniquely remarkable. And when you discover that, it's incredible the confidence it gives you and the power it gives you to move forward. Now, when I say every company is started for the same reason, people say, don't be ridiculous. But it's true. Every company was started because a person or a group of people said, I know a better way to do this. Right? they had worked in the business, they'd been an employee, they learned, they said, oh, I like this that they're teaching me. And they say, oh, I wouldn't do it like that. I'd do it differently. And they get to the point, this individual or this group of people, where they've got an idea of what their vision is. Mm-hmm. It's murky. And they go into business and they do a murky execution of what their brilliant idea is. And then that's where a blueprint comes along, because I transform it from murky to clear and compelling. And when I do that, they feel reborn. I swear to God, I know it sounds weird. I was sitting in front of the board of one of the most exclusive golf clubs in Toronto. And all of the board members were McKinsey and KPMG and Deloitte and EY. And the chair says to me, what is it that's intriguing about you in getting us as a client? Like, is it that if you do a good job with us, you can go out and pitch other clubs? And I just looked at him and I said, no, it's how we change the people. That's what I love. They think about their business fundamentally different after a blueprint than they did before. They think to themselves, oh my God, I knew a fraction of the value of this horse I was riding. Now I know the full value, and oh my God, get out of my way, because I'm going to ride this baby to the finish line. And they had never felt that way about the business before, right? Like you can imagine, when I was telling you about the retail shelving company, like until I got an actuarial firm as a client, that was my retail shelving was my least sexy client. Sean and I joke about that, so it's not insulting, right? But here's the thing. There's not too many businesses that are as unsexy as retail shelving. And yet, when you present it as opening sooner, all of a sudden, it's really sexy. Yeah.
We work a lot with commercial construction and paving, so I get it. I'm like, because the paving companies will come to me and they're like, I don't really know what you can do this. And I'm like, oh, buddy, I can make asphalt look so sexy. You don't even know. Like, because we love it. We're like, this is so cool because we are so behind it. Like, we feel so privileged to be able to help the companies that make our country drivable. Like, that's incredible, right?
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, okay, cool. I mean, if you think asphalt's sexy, I mean, we like it.
Okay. Look at it this way. And I know you're here already. But let's say the asphalt is being laid in a driveway. Right? Couple moves into a new home and it's maybe 30, 40 years old and the driveway is all pockmarked, right? And they've got a budget to make it, to renovate it and make it a new home. Well, this is the foundation of your castle, right?
It's the red carpet.
And so if you take a before and after, you're going to go, whoa, that looks way better. That's what you're doing. You're not paving a driveway. You're going, oh my God, look at how beautiful this place looks. And they may not even know that they're taking the driveway into account in that opinion, but they are. And that's what you're contributing to. Apple, right? Everybody thinks, oh my God, Apple, the sexiest company alive. Well,
God, they're so good.
But think of every other technology company, right? They're not nearly as sexy, not even remotely. Technology was the field that created the term that is the antithesis of sexy, which is geek. And yet, in a field that defined what is unsexy, Apple is like the sexiest company on the planet. And they created that.
Because they know what you want.
They know who they are. I'm going to say they know who they are. And because they know who they are, they produce what you want.
Yes.
And if you remember, Sinek Oh, let's loop back to Sinek for a moment, because you've mentioned him a number of times, and you are absolutely bang on. Sinek and I play in the same sandbox, right? And there are two differences between Sinek and I. One is, like you said, I define your why or your purpose in 7 words or less. They're the same thing. Your why, your purpose, what makes you uniquely remarkable. They're all the same thing. I define it in 7 words or less. That's a difference. But also, when I went in to pitch my book in New York to his editor said, "What's the difference between you and Simon?" And I said, "Hey, Simon's the leader in our area, and he's a great evangelist for the notion of the why, but he's got no methodology to get you there." And it's sort of an insulting thing to say to the editor. And by the way, Sinek walked into his office with the notion of the why. No book proposal. They developed it together. So here's a guy who was a part of the birth of the why revolution. And I'm sitting there saying to him, no methodology. And he said, "You're right, no methodology."
No, we had to make up our own. Like, I thought to myself, okay,
I don't know
how would this work? And I thought, okay, so I felt like we would have like this reason why we do things the way that we do them for our own personal benefit. And then we would have a reason why we do them that's like external. And then somehow it all kind of rolled into the same thing. And so like I had to make up the activity to do with my team.
Right. There's no step-by-step methodology to get you there. In a blueprint, that's the point. And in my book, the title of my book is called Why Should I Choose You? Answering the Single Most Important Question in Business in 7 words or less. Because the answer is your purpose. Why should I choose you, Mr. Retail Shelving Company? Opening sooner. Why should I choose you, Mr. Blueprint? Well, my 7 words or less is transforming confusion into clarity. And so before, when I said to take you from a murky notion of what your business is to clear, concise, and compelling, that's what my secret sauce is. That's what my superpower is. And that's my why.
So tell me what, okay, so I have 2, like maybe 4 directions I even want to take this conversation. First, I want to understand like what brought you here. A lot of the times, and I don't mean on the Marketing with Purpose podcast, I mean like a lot of the times we have to fail before we find these answers. So like where did this idea come from? How was it born?
Failure. So you and I talked before the podcast, and I talked to you about the fact that I had been an entrepreneur since I was in grade 2. So that was, that's part of where it is. When I finished university, my first job was as a copywriter in an advertising agency. And I would sit down at my typewriter. And that's right. And I would type the worst, most banal, cliche-driven copy. And I'd be typing it out, and I'd be watching the words appear on the page, and I'd go, this is terrible. This is terrible. What do I do? So I got one piece of paper, and I got an art director to put in big letters on this piece, 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, the question, is this true? And I taped that to the wall behind my typewriter, so that as I'm typing, I had to constantly ask myself, is this true? Is this true? Because what I was typing seemed to be like cliches that had nothing to do with the brand. There was no integrity. There was no nothing. So I was on the right direction in putting the sign up to ask, is that true? Does this have integrity? I was never successful at that time in becoming a writer who could do that. So anyway, go through the years, and I end up about 20 years ago starting this business with a business partner who sadly died 3.5 years ago. But it was the same thing. We had a conversation in a coffee shop where we both realized we had the same passion for strategic planning and the same disdain for how it's done. Defining mission, vision, and values. Show me a company that actually runs according to its mission, vision, and values. So we said, we can either train people the proper way to do mission, vision, and values, or we can just create something new. And the thought of stepping into the stream and standing in front of a stampede of fish going downstream and putting our hands and saying, stop, stop, all the real food is upstream, wasn't appealing to us. So over time, we knitted together what became a very, I call it a meat grinder now, right? Like a meat grinder doesn't ask you, how do you want this sausage to be made? It just makes it. Doesn't care what sausage you put through. That's what I have. I have a meat grinder. You don't change, as a client, you don't change the meat grinder. You come here and you go through the meat grinder. And it produces different sausage every time because what goes in is unique. So now I have, rather than a service, I have a product. And you buy that product. And it started, we picked up little pieces of it along the way. We were working with a PR company who said, you know what, like all your phrases are in 7 words or less. And we went, oh, yeah, you're right. Why don't we just make that a standard?
Yeah.
And then we were talking to a personal coach who gave us this notion of defining what makes you uniquely remarkable. So we just started knitting all these pieces in. I had a client who said, I need some help with this. What should I do? And I came up with a series of 5 questions. And when it was done, I turned to my business partner and I said, these 5 questions have to be an integral part of our process, even though I was creating them for a client. So it slowly, solidified and crystallized, and it became a set piece. And that's what it is now. But when you think about where my story started, is that true? I'm still in that business, right? So
yeah.
Your business, what is actually true about your business? Not what are you saying is true, not what do people think is true, not what are you behaving true is behaving true, but what is really true. And when you get that, oh my God, that's so empowering and exciting and inspiring. And whether you do it as an individual, right? I know my 7 words or less, or you do it as a company opening sooner, it's the same thing. And that's why I said, to the board at that golf club, it's how we change the people that I love.
So, what my listeners are thinking right now is they're like, okay, great. So how do I make a purpose? How do I do that? So tell me a little bit about, you said there's 3 steps in the process of blueprinting. How do you do this? I know you don't have to give away the farm here, and they can buy the book and learn the whole thing, but give me the big picture overview for those kind of folks that are really needing this information right now.
Okay. So let me just describe the process in a little bit more detail, and then I'll answer your question more specifically. So the first thing that we do, and that probably takes half the time, is we dig and we dig and we dig until we figure out what it is that makes you uniquely remarkable. And you ask me, I can tell you how I do it. So my tool is deconstruction, right? So I say to you, tell me about your business. What makes your business different? And you talk. And you'll say a bunch of things that will be laden with meaning. And I'll say, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? And that creates the process of deconstruction, because at the high end, at the start of deconstruction, you have a very complex problem to solve. But the more you deconstruct into its component parts, the lower you get in the deconstruction process, the more simple things become. And at some point, the answer pops out. You deconstruct enough that the answer pops out. And when it pops out, it's like opening sooner. We all just looked around and we felt like we were struck with a bolt of lightning. That's it. That's it. No conversation, no rationalization. That's it. Right? So that's the thing. When you're up here at the complex level and you're trying to figure out solutions, it's hard to see whether it's right or it's wrong, because there's so many moving parts. When you can deconstruct down to simplicity and it pops out, part of the reason that you know it's so right is because you immediately see how it addresses the complex, right?
So we start off with, what does your business do? And then you're going to pick out all those little things. And what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? Okay.
That's right.
And eventually it gets down to something way simpler.
I'll give you a specific example of that, right?
Okay.
So a lot of people, when they initially describe their business, they say, we are a customer-centered business. And I say, what does that mean? And so they go, oh, no one's ever asked us that before. I just intuitively know what customer-centered means. I care about the customer. I said, don't tell me what customer-centered means. And now they got to start thinking about that. And I'm going to challenge as they start saying, well, it means this, and it means that, and it means that. And I'm going to say stuff like, show me where you do that. You do that? You do. And if you do, awesome. But if you don't, now you see the inconsistency between the words that you're communicating to the outside world and what you're actually doing. And we have to eliminate that gap, right? So that's to say, just to be, you could moderate 50% of a blueprint right now. Just by every time someone says something, you pick a piece of it and you say, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean?
Mm-hmm. So then what's the second step? If that's the first step.
Oh, sure. So that's how you come up with your purpose statement, your 7 words or less.
Okay.
Right? Once you've got that, then you're at the starting line. Because a pretty statement by itself doesn't really do anything for you.
Yeah.
So the first thing we do is we say, okay, what does this statement mean? What does opening sooner mean? And there are 5 questions that we ask to answer that question. Those 5 answers become the guide for how you communicate about the company. Okay. Not a script. It is something not to memorize. Internalize, yes, but not memorize. It's not a script. Just internalize those points and then talk about yourself. And you'll be shocked at how inspiring your communications dialogue is about the company. So we design what we call the purpose story. These 5 questions. If I were to ask you any one of those 5 questions now, any one of them would take you 20 minutes to answer. And we have to work.
They? Will you ask me them?
Yeah,
Can you do that?
So sure. So the 5 questions are, imagine that you've got your purpose statement, opening sooner, at the top. Question 1 is, what does that mean? Question 2 is, why are you qualified to do that?
Okay.
Question 3 is, oh my God.
I put you on the spot.
You put me on the spot, and I've done this for 20 years, and I'm gapping on this.
What does that mean? Why are you qualified?
What? Yeah. So what does that mean? Oh, you do this. Oh, you build bridges? Why are you qualified to build bridges, right? Oh, well, I went to engineering school, and I did this, and I did that, and I did the other thing. Oh, great. Okay. So now I have the confidence that you have the technical expertise. What are the beliefs that have led you to this place? And you may say, well, I thought you didn't like mission, vision, and values. It's like, yeah, there's a difference between values and beliefs. Mm-hmm. If you say to me, these are the 4 values that guide my company, first of all, I don't believe you, because almost no company is actually guided by their values. But the other thing is, I would say, okay, let's take value number 1. What does that mean? Here's that question again. And they'll say something like, well, we believe this, we believe that, we believe the other thing. And I take those 3 things and I say, great. They're one step below values. And they're more tangible. And because they're more tangible, they guide behavior more effectively. So I'll give you an example. One of my beliefs is that the traditional tools of business that were designed and developed post-war in schools like Harvard and Stanford and Kellogg, and in companies like IBM and General Motors and Ford and stuff like that, they're no longer enough, right? And so they're anachronistic. And so that's my belief. Now, if I come to you and say, that's my belief, and now I'm going to lead you through a process of mission, vision, and values, you'd say, your belief and your practice are out of sync, right? So what that belief forces me to do is constantly look for new and better ways to do things and not rely on the old traditional ways because they don't work anymore. They're out of date, right?
Agreed. Says the woman who's trying to transition her team to a 4-day work week. Like, yes,
right. Yeah.
Out of date, not working for me.
So the fourth
once
question,
we know the beliefs that led us there, what do we ask ourselves next?
Okay, here's the killer. What's your methodology? You have a unique methodology. You won't know what that unique methodology is until you know your purpose, because you have to know what the thing is that your methodology is taking you to.
Okay.
Right? So what is your unique methodology? And the interesting thing about this question is that your methodology is the substance of the organization. All of the substance of you is because of how you do what you do. So think of it as
though, that I think people are trying to sell all the time, but that the other people aren't necessarily like, they needed to hear the purpose, and what we're trying to sell is the methodology, because that's me centered.
That's right.
And that's not externally focused, and that's not the right way to tackle it. That's what I'm hearing. But we still need to know it, right? It's still important to know it.
Still need to know it, just like you need to know features and benefits, because at some point someone's going to say to me, wow, I really like your story. How do you do that?
Yeah.
Right?
Hopefully.
So then your methodology becomes, again, a proof point for your purpose. And that makes it much more powerful. So here's the thing, is that, by the way, saying, we sit down with you, we listen to what your challenges are, we put our heads together and come up with a great solution, we present that to you, and then we execute it. That's not a methodology. That is the standard way that a supplier of a service relates to a customer. It is not a methodology. Here's the methodology. Step 1, define your purpose. Step 2, create the story of your purpose. Step 3, use your purpose to design how you operate. That's the blueprint methodology. So it's not complex. You just have to know what it is. And that is the source of the substance of what I do. Those 3 things. If those don't exist, then I'm just all pretty words, right? So that's question 4. What is your methodology? And when your methodology is presented within the context of your purpose, it's very powerful. Then the next question, the last question, is, if you're about this opening sooner thing, or if you're about this transforming confusion into clarity thing, what do I get as a material stakeholder of yours, right? So we already said, so here's the thing. Your purpose statement has to resonate on a deep emotional level with all your stakeholders, not just your customers. We always discover it by talking about the relationship between the company and the customer. But then we look around and we say, does this also resonate on a deep emotional level with employees? Because it absolutely must. So when you think of opening sooner, we said, it resonates with the buyer, the VP of construction, because it alleviates their anxiety and makes them a hero. The employee, none of that matters to them. What matters to them is that they're the ones who get finished first. We're the opening sooner people. These are our bragging rights, right? So then what we do is we say, we've got one story, right? But we have to understand how it resonates on a deep emotional level with each stakeholder group, because it's different.
So I wasn't that far off when I planned out my stuff, because I said it has to, like, how does it work for us internally? How does it work for our clients? I wasn't in the right mind frame yet, but you know what? I'm feeling slightly smarter. Actually, I'm feeling very smarter. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking through all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, oh my gosh. And we did some of this. We didn't do all of it. Yeah. But this is awesome. Yay! Okay, so
but let me tell you about that though, right? So when we get to the last question, what do I get from that as a stakeholder? First thing we do is we list all your material stakeholders. It's usually, 3, 5, 6 kind of thing. Customers, obviously. Employees, obviously. Your board is probably going to be a material stakeholder as well. So we list them all out. And then we have to identify, although we've already said, we've come up with a purpose that resonates on a deep emotional level, we then have to identify for each stakeholder group how specifically it resonates on a deep emotional level. So, opening sooner, how does it resonate for the buyer? Well, it alleviates anxiety, an emotion, and it makes them a hero, an emotion. Right? How does it resonate with employees? They're the studs, male or female, doesn't matter. They're the ones opening sooner. They're the fastest, right? So it's all ego. And we do that with all stakeholder groups. And what that allows you to do is, once you know your story, which we've just constructed, you can then customize it to each group by focusing on this 1 or 2 line description that we've come up with that says this is how it resonates on a deep emotional level with these people. So that takes care of the story, and that guides your branding, your marketing, your sales, your investor relations, employee relations, board relations, government relations, all that stuff. Then the last thing we do is we say, let's look at every part of your business, every material part of your business. Let's say there's 4, 5, 6 parts of your business. We look at them one at a time, and we say, is this part aligned with your purpose? Opening sooner. And if it is, awesome. And if it isn't, we come up with just 1 or 2 lines that say, here's how it has to change. And now you've got clear direction for all the parts of the organization, what they have to do in order to get working in lockstep towards a common goal, which is the holy grail of any CEO, right? Is to have that organization running like a well-oiled machine. Well, the way you do it is you get every part to be committed to the same thing, which is your purpose. Now the blueprint's done. That's it.
I'm excited. That's awesome. And I really love the way that you said that you customize that story for each stakeholder group, because I think that's the thing that a lot of companies miss, is that they don't understand that not everybody cares about, they all care about your purpose, right? They don't care about it for the same reasons. And so having a different conversation with each with each stakeholder group is important. And I really think that you're right. Like, having it with your employees and the board is super, super important, because I think one of the biggest challenges in some of the businesses I work with are getting those employees, keeping them around, because they understand that without them they couldn't run their business, but they don't quite know how to talk to them yet about what it is. And it's not the benefits, it's not the 401k match.
Do you know why, by the way? Do you know why? Do you know why it's not those things?
Tell me.
It's the wrong part of your brain. And Sinek
That's
explains
right.
that. That's right. Yes. You
It's
remember
the
from
lizard
his
part.
well, actually, when you are dealing with features and benefits, you're dealing with your cerebral cortex, right? The rational part of your brain. When you hear the little person in your brain talking to you or weighing the pros and cons, you think that that's you thinking and decision making, right? It's not. That decision was already made in your cerebral cortex. In your limbic system, which is the home of feelings and emotions, because all decisions are made on an emotional basis first. And then your cerebral cortex says to your limbic system, oh, I see you've just made a decision. Brief me on that so I know how to communicate it to the outside world. And there's a struggle there, well, because your limbic system has no capacity for language. So your cerebral cortex is sort of trying to read the sign language and the hand gestures of your limbic system to understand how it came to that decision, right? So no, the facts and figures don't resonate. Emotional appeals resonate.
I love this. I love it all. This has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of this information, Ian. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to go buy this book. I'm going to have to read it. It's really interesting. Whenever I have authors come on the podcast, I often go buy their books and read them because I'm like, this is so awesome. I know we just got a tip of the iceberg here. So tell people how they can find you and learn more. And, what's your book's called? Why would I buy this?
Yeah, close. Why should I choose you?
Why should I choose you? Oh, well, look, I wrote it down and then I
answering the single most important question in business in 7 words or less. Yeah. So I don't know if you're a reader or a listener of books. I don't know if you'll be able to read it because I think it's sold out. But you can look on Amazon. The audio book is there.
Okay, good.
And then it's just go to my website, and it is the number 7 words, right? Words in a book. WORDS. .biz. I had to be very careful there to say that in the American way, because if you were Canadian, I would have said biz. So yeah, 7 words .biz. You can go there. I've got 1 million videos on my blog all about the individual strategic benefits of purpose, the sales benefits of purpose, all that sort of stuff, and of course you can contact me there as well.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us today. I hope that you were taking notes. And if not, just know that you can go out to MayeCreate.com. That's MayeCreate.com. I will have links to Ian's contact information, and also you'll get the transcript over there. So that way you can kind of search and find what you want to find in here. So if you subscribe to the podcast, yay, then you will be notified about next week's episode too. Next week, we're going to talk about what to blog about. Yes, we're going to go from this big picture thing to a much more specific topic focused on blogging. So I'm going to give you some post ideas to get your creative juices flowing. And I might even give you some ideas of posts that you can dream up that are all around your company's purpose, because that's pretty powerful. We need to be educating people so that way when they come to us, they're ready to buy. Okay, so friends, subscribe so you don't miss anything. And before I let you go, I want to give one more shout out to our MayeCreate resource sponsor, Marketing on a Shoestring. It is the free beginner's mini course to marketing on a budget. It lays the foundation of creating the right messaging to connect with your potential customer and prime them to buy. It unlocks the 4-part framework for making confident, budget-conscious marketing decisions so you can stop second-guessing and get a clear path forward. And it outlines the highest converting tactics that I know of for new marketers so you don't have to waste time on strategies that will never reach your goals. Hop on over to youmayecreate.com for instant access. That's YOUMAYECREATE.com.